say the club down the street started offering rowing, or they started offering a HIIT class, or whatever it may be, and you start bringing that into your business, right? All you end up doing is you're just not being great at anything. You kind of lose sight of what you're actually good at.
That's a great point. Well, it goes back to like focus on what you're good at,
right,
and double down on that and stay the course. But if you pay, again, I think you and I have talked about this before, but if you pay too much attention to what your competitors are doing,
right,
you're going to all be the same. Hello, Matt.
Rick, welcome to the show.
What is the show? What is the show? It's the Alloy. What is it? What are we? What are we called?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just the thing that we do every week, once a week.
We need a sponsor.
We do. Who wants to sponsor us? All right, listen. In the show notes, let us know if you want to sponsor us. Matt is giving up on his OnlyFans page, and he needs some more income. So if you guys would like to sponsor us, I will funnel all of the funds here to young Matt.
Yeah, apparently nobody wanted to see my feet.
That's a shocker, honestly. Was I the only subscriber?
God.
Honestly, I never went on there. I just felt bad for you.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here for you. Anyway, if you want to sponsor Matt and you don't want to see his feet, actually, you probably pay extra not to see him. So why don't you just sponsor us and we'll figure it out later. Speaking of weird things, so I was at the gym the other day. I work out at a different gym down the street just to like hide out so nobody knows me. I was working out down there, and there's this like super attractive girl that I see there all the time. And so I was like, well, I'm going to just talk to her because she seems really cool. And she's doing like cool exercises. So I went over and I was like, hey, pardon me. And she's like looked a little bit put off, but she was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, hey, what so then I kind of panicked. I was like, what are your goals, for the last quarter of this year? And she just looked me dead in the eye. She's like, screw you. And I was like, damn, I can't wait for the last few months of this year.
Oh my God.
Sorry, babe.
You can see your setups from a mile away.
Sorry, babe. Well, I mean, it's a dad joke.
Hey, one thing.
So I was in the gym the other day. Everyone's like, really? Look, man, it's a dad joke. It's supposed to be a corny setup. What do you have?
I don't know how you memorized all that in like 12 seconds. Did you rehearse that all weekend?
No, I literally just looked it up.
Jeez, that's impressive.
Thanks.
That's
Thank
impressive. You. I got a dad joke as a celebrity dad joke from our boy in Jersey, Greg Marone.
Oh, shout out to Greg. All right, Greg, what you got? Wait, so you're acting as Greg?
This is me as Greg.
All right.
So he literally texted me out of the blue.
Yeah. And I love how Matt gets dad joke suggestions from our...
Mine must be really bad.
Yeah, Matt, please don't do yours. Do this one. What do you got?
This is a Jersey dad joke. What is the scariest meat?
I don't know.
Gabagool.
Gabagool or gabagool?
Gabagool.
Oh, okay. Goes to show you I don't know the shit about New Jersey meats.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Oh, man, that's great. So what we are going to talk about today is something that we don't deal with it as much, but because I'm a little bit above the fray at this point in time. But that's a good thing because I think you are as well, and it will give us perspective in talking to people. And that's about how you should deal with your local competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was a one-man shop here and I didn't have the licensing or anything other businesses, I struggled with this, idea of like, hey, we have local competitors. And to me, at the time at least, and I think that's what I hear currently from either franchisees or other business owners, it's like, these people are like enemy number one and they're a massive threat, to my business. And now that I've been out of that for a minute, like not like in the weeds, and I can zoom out and look at things from like crop duster height, I don't think that was the right view to take on it. What are your thoughts? Because you obviously run the corporate gym now and will run the other corporate gyms. And there is it's like we've got this global thing going and then there's like this local gym. And to the members, that's how it should feel. But what are your views on like local competition? Yeah,
I mean, I just remember when I was, director in here at the time, and I remember we had like 50 competitors, within 5 miles,
mm-hmm.
right? And every once in a while you lose members here or there, so it gets you kind of like what's going on? They doing something different,
right?
What are they doing? They
chasing them down on social media to see what they're up to.
You quickly realize it had nothing to do with anything they were doing, right? It's more of a look in the mirror kind of deal. But I can see how you get caught up in that, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, it's in some ways it's literally taking food off of your table. So I do understand the concern. But I think if we can give you guys some perspective, having been in business for 30 years, on really how to view your local competition and maybe focus on the things that you should be focusing on, I think it will help. So I just have some notes and we'll just go back and forth on it. So one of them would be like your local marketing, because I think it's very easy to look at your competitor's marketing strategy and either feel like they're copying you, or a bigger risk would be copying them.
Sure. Or trying to outplay them. That's what I say a lot.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean like I'm offering 2 weeks free, or they're offering 2 weeks free, so I'm going to offer 3 weeks free.
Oh,
or
so like, does that manifest itself sometimes in pricing as well?
Oh yeah, it manipulates the whole chain, right? You keep dropping down, and then we're going to talk about pricing in a minute, but then you start changing that because of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's probably like two pricing models. There's like your hook and what that's going to be, right? And then there's like your long-term pricing. And the hook, I think, is the marketing piece, right? Yeah. But if you go too low on your hook, and we've talked about this before, like you run the risk of attracting the wrong type of customers if you have a very low barrier offer. Mm-hmm. And you're also speaking to your customers that your product and service is not that valuable. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, specifically speaking to our model, we're personal training. Everything has to be about that. We're not giving out free classes or anything like that. So that's what happens if you keep going back and forth with somebody else.
I think when you look at all the class-based concepts that are out there, there is some commoditization of the class-based concept. And so if you're chasing the same customer avatar and you're putting out the same messaging and it's all about hit training and all the things, the only thing that you can differentiate yourself on is price, broad sweeping. Now you could say, well, yeah, but I do it this way, and yeah, but I do it that way. And I might agree with you, but I'll probably push back on that idea, saying, well, I'm looking at things through the consumer's lens, which to me is the only one that matters. I don't care about, well, we use this piece of equipment, or we have, these kettlebells, or this and that. Typically, the consumer just wants to get to the end game, and you're selling the braces. I want you to sell the smile, like just sell the end game, right? And so, if through the consumer's lens everything looks the same, there is some of that, commoditization to the point where the only differentiator then is going to be price. And what you don't want to get caught up in is a race to the bottom, price wise, right? That's a terrible spot to be in.
Well, you start chasing the wrong customers, like you said, and then you start messing up with your price, where you get people just buying that, where you get 30 days of training for $9.99, $9.99, and then guess what? They're not staying because they just came in on your hook, which totally brought in the wrong person.
Right. Yeah. So it's the wrong hook for the avatar, and it depends on your type of business. But we have the real data now on class-based concepts versus personal training. Mm-hmm. And why would you put a hook out? Let's just say you're personal training like we are. You wouldn't want to put a class-based hook out there, which is something very low barrier. It has a short-term promise to it. And it might get warm bodies through your door, but there's really two things at play. It's like, yes, it might bring warm bodies through your door, but it will definitely increase your churn on the back end, right? So it's like, look, part of having a relevant hook is not just getting the person to move and sell. There's some sales acumen in there too, but a lot of it is what type of customer are you bringing to your business? And will they stay, like our customer, are they there 3 years later, or are they churning out quickly because...
Brought in the wrong person, and you immediately almost kind of devalue what you're offering right out of the gate.
Right. And that maybe then dovetails right into like really paying too much attention, I think, to what your competitors are offering from a product service standpoint.
Right.
Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, they're doing, I remember back when we first launched like boot camps, and other people, we were like first in our market, and then other people started doing them. And it was like, we're going to do heart rate mechanisms for that. And it's like, all right, and then they could knock that off. I mean, every single thing that we would come out with, even though we were first, it was easily duplicable, and it was hard to differentiate, I would say. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it was, say the club down the street started offering rowing, or they started offering a hit class, or, whatever it may be. And you start bringing that into your business, right? All you end up doing is you're just not being great at anything. You kind of lose sight of what you're actually good at.
That's a great point. Well, it goes back to like focus on what you're good at,
right?
And double down on that and stay the course. But if you pay, again, I think you and I've talked about this before, but if you pay too much attention to what your competitors are doing,
right,
you're going to all be the same, right? And so, you and I have talked about it. It's like you want to know like what the price averages are in your market. You want to be aware of like, what other brands are out there and kind of what they do. But I heard it articulated this way, which I liked, which is like, I don't want my competitors at the conference table when I make my decisions about my business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do is they have so much head trash around what's going on in their market that they make reactive decisions based on what their competitors are doing, which is a terrible way to do it. If you're doing that, to me, you're already a step behind.
Well, it's all assumptions. They really have no idea.
True.
They're doing great. I saw them pictures on social media. We got to do that.
Right. You're not digging into their books. You don't know how they're doing.
No.
Yeah. And any amount of effort that you put into copying someone else or worrying about what they're doing is attention away from making the thing that you're doing so much better. I was listening to a video the other day. I think it was from Jordan Peterson, and someone's like, should you be out there like, going after these social causes or whatever? And he's like, no. He's like, if you want to slay dragons, you don't have to look very far. You've got all that you need inside of you, right? And I think about that like in the context of the business. It's like, you don't need to be out there worrying about what everybody else is doing. There's probably 4 or 5 things that are critical in your business right now that if you would just focus on what you're doing and doing it better, it would move the needle in your own business, which is far better than chasing your tail and worrying about what everybody else is doing, because it's at the expense of the things right in front of you that could make your customers much happier and make your business stronger, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're keep it simple, personal training. We don't want to confuse our customers. We want them to understand. I mean, every day they get at consistency, right? And all of you start adding in all different things. Your clients, just like you, they just lose sight of what's actually important. What the real value of this is.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that. We've been through a lot of iterations and changes, and every time we've gone through a change, you see the confusion of our customers, and I understand why they're confused. Yeah. But as we went from a bigger facility that did lots of things, because we did that partly because locally we were one-stop shop and we wanted to trap a lot of the market, and in hindsight, it was a mistake. But we also wanted to practice the things that we were deploying into our licensees. So we did boot camps and stuff. Not that we liked them, and we saw a bunch of churn in that, just like every other brand does in that kind of price, vertical. Yeah. But we felt like we had to do it. Now, when we went to franchising, we're like, all right, we need to get very focused on the one thing that is a gap in the market, right? The customer avatar, the way we service, personal training, all that stuff. But that was at the expense of a lot of the customers that were in those other verticals in our business, and they were always like super confused about why we were paring down. It ended up being the right thing. It just wasn't easy to do at the time, and we lost a lot of them to other brands that offered similar verticals, if that makes sense. Like we lost our team training clients to other brands in our market that did boot camps because the price threshold was where they needed to be.
Price threshold. I mean, you just look at when we were licensing and we're going into those clubs, they were all doing basically what we're talking about. Other clubs are doing that, and they wanted to bring it in and have their own. But like you talk about, you're never going to beat somebody that's all they do, right? Those actual like boot camp brands, you're not going to beat them at their own game
unless you just go all in on that thing,
right?
And then that begs the question: why go all in on that thing if your market is saturated with that thing already? Because I will tell you that through the lens of the consumer, it looks very similar. And again, you're selling the braces, you're splitting the hairs on like, well, we do this, or we wear bracelets that tell people what level they are. We do this and we do that, and it's like it's 20 people, but it's really personal training. It's like, no, it's not. It doesn't feel or smell like it. It looks just like Orange Theory, F45, and everything else down the road, right? And listen, I hear pushback from some people who will say, like, in my market, it still works well. We're still killing it. I'm like, great, how about it? I mean, again, I'm looking at things broadly over markets all over, right? Some that are very saturated, very busy. If you're in a really odd, say, B or C market, in not a sparsely populated area, and you're the only game in town, and you can attract enough people to run that kind of business, great. You probably will withstand or not get as many like relevant competitors in your market. But certainly when you go to franchising, it's like, look, we're putting these things in really nice areas where there's a lot of other fitness products, and we're happy to do so because we're different than they are. If we copied them, we would not be.
So in business, you ever worried about people stealing your stuff?
I'm not. Look, there's a guy down the street from us, and he's a great dude. I think he's got 2 gyms now. And every time we have a trainer that leaves for some kind of an egregious thing, and this is like long time ago, they end up working there. And so like, why would I be worried about the guy? And I'm not trying to like throw shade his way, because again, he's a good dude. But like literally, like all of our old coaches that have done things that were offenses that got them let go from my company end up in his company. And then the clients that follow them, you could probably say the same thing about them. It's like, you want to follow that guy? I mean, it's like, it's kind of a sketch thing, right? So it's like, I know Matt's like, whoa. But no, it's true. So why would I be worried about someone who's literally I don't know how else to put it, like picking up my scraps, right? That's it. And that might sound derogatory. I don't mean it that way necessarily, but I don't really know how else to articulate it in a friendly way. But like, why would I worry about someone who literally is just picking up anything that I slough off on purpose?
What about outside of people, like modalities and training tools and the way that we do things?
No, I mean,
did you ever worry about that?
No, I've been traveling the world for 15 years telling people exactly how to do what we do. And a handful, if even that, have even been able to do it. It's like, I can tell somebody how to lose weight on a street corner, waiting for the street light to change,
Right.
but it doesn't mean they're going to take all my information, write it down, and go execute it. It's the same kind of thing with the programming and the business things. And there's so much discipline and mindset, and execution is so hard on a consistent basis over a long period of time. I'm not worried about it. I'll tell you exactly what we do. We've put everything we do in detail on this podcast. Has somebody come up with a Pepsi to our Coke for small group training yet? No. Will they eventually? I'm sure they will. So be it. Do you know how many people are out of shape in this world? That's another thing about local competition. You don't think there's enough people in your area that need help with, again, their fitness or their health, that there's enough people to go around? Like, is that your mindset? That scarcity mindset is such a killer. We have another local competitor, and our physical therapist who used to work in our building. Part of the way that he would build his business is he would go participate in other fitness brands, right? And, he'd go work out somewhere for like a month, and he'd get to know them. And then that would be a way for him to develop a relationship. So if they had clients or members that needed physical therapy, they would refer to him. And I think it's a great marketing strategy. It didn't bother me one bit that he was doing it, even though he was housed in my facility. What do I care? It's just workouts, right?
I've heard, other brands that he went to wouldn't let him in because they're worried that those clients would come to our gym.
That's what I'm saying. So that's the scarcity mindset where you're like, hey, this physical therapist is here. Like, he has the time, if he's a good business owner, to go over, work out for 30 days in your business for the sole purpose of poaching 4 or 5 people to come to my business.
He don't care about our business.
He's trying to build his own business, rightly so. And he's not out to hurt anybody. He's not hurting me. He's not hurting them. Right. I mean, I think the natural inclination would be to be like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing? Like, going over there and bring those people. Look, he's a physical therapist. That's what he does. And people that are working out, get tweaked sometimes and they want to stay active, and he's a good physical therapist that can keep them active. Like, of course that's how he builds his business. But I found it so funny that these other brands, especially if they were one-offs, if they were like franchise brands, not as much, but if they were like these one-offs, they didn't want him to train there for fear that he was going to like steal secrets and bring them back here. I'm like, dude, I don't care what you're doing. I'm 5 steps ahead of you already. It's like, it doesn't matter to me what you're doing.
It's definitely a different mindset. And if you have that scarcity mindset and you probably are real small, and it's going to be really hard for you to grow to begin with.
Yeah, it's funny because periodically, like, I'll see something, one of my local competitors that's a one-off, and I remember being that person, so I have a little bit of a soft spot for those people, even though they're kind of crazy. And I'll ping them on social media and be like, hey, you're doing a great job, and I've even gotten together with a couple of local operators and just had coffee, and they just want to know, like, oh, how'd you scale your business, and how'd you get to here, and how'd you get to there? It's like, I'm happy to share. Like, again, there's a lot of people in the world that need our help. The last thing I want to be is like, I'm not sharing these ideas because you'll take them and do all these things with them. Now, I don't have a lot of time to be out there coaching, one-off business owners because I got my own franchisees to worry about.
Sure.
But at the same time, if I do have the time and I want to sit down with somebody, I'm happy to share whatever I've done to be successful, because if they can help their local community get to a healthier place, I'm all for that. And I really do mean that. I don't feel like I'm in competition with them in that regard any longer. Now, I used to. So this is who this is for, is like our franchisees or people who are like, wait, our 2 people went to this new thing. It's like, you're going to lose some people. As long as you're staying within your percentages, again, ours is pretty low churn. So as long as you're staying there, you're going to lose folks. You really are. We don't lose them as much as other brands, so that's a good thing. But I think a scarcity mindset is just a killer, and I think it's just a terrible way to operate in the world. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, if you just focus on what you're doing and being the best at it, and don't worry about clients that maybe eventually, or people stealing what you're doing, like, oh, they're going to do small group, like well, all right, be better. Like, we're set up. That's where it's built. Like, be better. Are they going to be as good as you? No, right? Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, there's a lot of people that do small group. I mean, I've been teaching it at like the Perform Better Summits and other summits for 15 years. Here's exactly how we do it. Here's what our programming template looks like. Here's what we say. Here's what we do. That's a completely different animal than actually executing it, hiring the right people, holding them accountable, and a consistency, because typically the local entrepreneur that maybe doesn't have a larger view and can't zoom out and look at things maybe through a different lens, they're hopping around trying all, like, going to add this nutrition thing. They do 15 different classes. They're doing like ribbon yoga one week, and the next week it's this, the next week it's that. When I see that, I'm like, man, don't do that. Just take the thing that you have and make sure it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, you got to be in a good market. You can't be in a market where there's no runway at all, right?
Right.
Like, if you're selling phone booths, it's like, all right, you're out, right? Like, you're not doing pay phones. So, like, I got it. But if you're in a market that has some runway to it, just do the thing you do really well. Put all of your focus on that.
Yep.
And sure, you might look around and be like, well, that's an interesting concept. What do they do? Oh, okay, cool, right? But you're not going to like copy them. Like, do you, but do it really well, because that's the hardest thing. It's not that they're not going to win because they offered 2 yoga classes on a weekend, right? And you copying that isn't going to help you at all. What you need to do is work on your customer service, your sales process, your follow-up, client relations, all the things, the stuff that entrepreneurs don't want to do because it's the 20-mile more. It's just the boring work. I do it every single day. It's like, you and I are like, oh, I mean, it's hard discipline to just do your thing really, really well. And I think it's easier for us now because we can zoom out and now we have different perspective. But that's the way things go. Like, I think part of the duty of you and I or our organization as we get bigger, if we're going to put these messages out, is like, hey, maybe we can help the one-off guy, and certainly help our franchisees, because they go through it too. They're brand new to it, and they're like, oh, we had somebody that came in and said they were going to try this yoga thing down the road. What should I do? I'm like, let them try it. Like, just be better. Just be better. Like, and I know that sounds trite and sort of like flippant, like, man, just be better than they are. But I really mean just focus on what you're doing, because that's all you have to do. And if you do that obscenely well, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. You remember, when you're doing Perform Better circuits, I'm sure you see this all the time where, people come out and they learn a lot. I mean, those things are awesome, but you get like a lot of different information, and then you come back to your business and totally just blow up the entire thing.
Everybody's doing kettlebells when that first came out or whatever that was. And that was going to be the secret, And what's funny, from my lens too, like, each year I've probably leveled up a little bit, I think, some years down a little bit, up a little bit, but each year I've leveled up over time, I think, a little bit to get where I am now. Because going from like a one club owner, personal trainer dude to like being the CEO of a franchise that's really fast growing, it's not easy, right? And we've talked about plenty of podcasts on, you level up, you create a different opportunity vehicle. You level up, right? But I can remember being those guys. And so I know what they're thinking, and I'll see them year over year, and we have the same conversations every year, and I'm just like, gosh, we talked about this last time. Like, hey, I'm going to do this, or I'm thinking about that, right? But then when I ask them, like, the following year, because typically the same crowds come into these, talks, what did you do? And it will be things, but it wasn't the thing that was the main thing that they should have done. It'll be like, oh, I added this, and we launched this like new coaching program, and I launched a corporate thing, and I'm starting an app, and I started a podcast, and I'm like, oh man, what happened to just like holding your team accountable and having regular meetings and putting in metrics on like how the business is really doing? And how about leading KPIs, like behaviors that lead to the numbers that you want? Are you coaching your team on that? It's like, or are you just like going haywire? Like, again, we talked about, like, if you do it once and it works, now do something else, right? It's like, I don't know why we do that. But
well, I mean, if it's, and I saw a Cressy quote from this, Eric Cressy, and he's talking about the same thing, going to these seminars and learning a bunch, and then coming back and say you're training an athlete. Would you just totally blow up everything you're doing with your client or athlete in front of you? No, you just tinker. Like, you're not trying to.
Well, it's like our idea about like business ideas, like bullets before cannonballs.
Right.
Like you can put some feelers out and try a few things, right? Yeah. And maybe if you find a heat signature and you keep going there and going there and going there, then you make a change. But the idea is not to just willy-nilly, like just go in all directions.
Right.
And that's what you run the risk of if you pay too much attention to your competitors. You will chase every single opportunity, what looks like an opportunity from them. And if you're fear-based, you'll chase it. But what you'll end up with is just a scattershot business that doesn't really have an identity. You don't know what it is that you focus on. Who are you? What do you do? Who's your customer avatar? How can you speak to them better? And just double down. Once you find the thing, man, just do the thing and just be better at it than anyone else. I mean, most successful businesses, when you look at Jim Collins' Great But Choice, and he talks about the 20-mile march, which we've used ad nauseum here, it's not the most innovative companies that have the most things, or again, it's not the creators, it's the disruptors. And the disruption in this case can be like, they just do the basics better than everyone else for a longer period of time than anyone else. So do you have to be in business 30 years? No. We're giving people a franchise opportunity to shortcut that so you don't have to make all the mistakes that we made, right? But if you're listening to this, also look up to people that have done it before and look at how successful they are. Look at what their secret to success is. What are they telling you? Like, what are we telling you right now? Are we saying freak out every time some new concept moves into your market and try to adopt what they do so you can beat every vertical in your market? No, we're saying pick your thing with the right customer avatar and double down on that until you beat everyone in your market at that. And the only way you're going to do that, even direct competitors, is to just focus on what you're doing and make that thing so much better than it is right now.
I just want to let you know that I've added in karate and cold yoga into our program.
Awesome. Cold yoga. That must be
Is that a
new
thing?
one. Yeah, it's a guaranteed pull muscle. I love it. We don't sweat, we freeze. Well, it is. It's all cold plunges and saunas these days, right? You're all moving to Finland and jumping
in the
in
middle of the workout. We're going to do karate, and then we end with a cold plunge.
I love this idea, and that's sort of taking all the concepts in our market and blending them up into one thing and being like, we can do that too. We can do all of that.
It's working everywhere else, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we could do cold kettlebells. You could do sort of like
cold kettlebells,
cold plunge core workouts in the cold plunge tubs, right?
We'll go back to the days where you throw medicine balls at somebody for their ab work.
Oh yeah, they just hang there and you just throw them in their stomach as hard as you can. Yeah, old school. It's coming back. Well, I guarantee you, there's some owner out there who saw that and it's like, we need to be doing that. That's awesome. Look at this. Look at this machine they bought. We need that machine too to keep up. It's like, no, you don't. You probably need better customer service. When I used to present on working with large clubs, because we did a lot of that, and I can distinctly remember touring a club one day, and the guy is saying, I'm not sure what it is. We sell personal training pretty well. We have a pretty good sales process, but our retention just sucks. And he's like, I don't know if we're hiring the wrong coaches or, it's our software needs improvement so we can communicate better. And those things might have been true, but while we were walking through the gym, as he's telling me how bad their retention is for their personal training clients, there's a trainer who's training 2 people. He could be less interested, and he's eating his food out of a cooler, out of a Tupperware, looking at himself in the mirror while his clients work out and stare at him like, please give me some direction. So I saw that same, all within walking from the front of the building to the back office.
Could figure it out, huh?
Yeah, it's a mystery. I don't know why our churn is so high for personal training. It's maybe because your trainers don't care. They're eating out of stinky coolers, right? And there was another guy who, again, he was on his phone the whole time, and the client's just sitting. There's no conversation between sets. That was in a one-on-one session. But it's just awful. When you see it, I'm like, you don't have a software marketing, training technique tool problem. You have a management problem. You have a people problem. You have a leadership problem, period. Fix that shit.
Do you know what's sad is in personal training, and I've worked other places in big clubs as you have, and people, which is a good thing about personal training, definitely positive. People get attached to that person. It doesn't matter how good they are. Or bad. They could be that dude in his cooler on his phone. I've seen people stay with folks like that for years, and you're like, what in the world is going on?
In some ways, it speaks to the fact that, okay, why does a personal training facility have better retention on average than a class-based concept? I don't know, but I will tell you that if a guy who's eating out of a cooler and doesn't give 2 shits about the customer he's standing in front of can keep somebody for years, it may be the fact that it's the structure of the business. Man, we did a whole podcast on hey, sometimes there's nothing else to do except change the business model because it's broken, right? That doesn't work for this metric that you're tracking, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm in a class-based concept, I'm not worried about retention. It's it's a nature of the beast, right? So what I'm going to do is ramp up my marketing and try to outspend everyone in my market and bring in more new people to outgrow my churn rate and maybe net grow 15 a month by selling 50, right? Yep. That's the name of the game. You get into that game, you know what game you're playing, play the damn game. Our game can be more retention based because of the structure of it. So to your point, even a shitty trainer should have better retention than a class-based concept, right? So there's that, but I will say that there's probably going to be more people coming to training. We certainly service it in a very unique way. But there's no secrets to it. And again, going all the way back to my competition, we still have a ton of competition in our area, and they're in all different things. I mean, people only have so much time and resources to spend on their fitness, and we feel like we can carve out 130 people in our area, especially with the science and the messaging that's now coming out about muscle mass, because we lean towards strength first for our population, move more, and then get your heart rate up every now and then, right? That's more palatable for most people, right? And that message is now being, sort of the spotlight is on that message more in the media, more than it ever has been. So it gets away from like, get your heart rate up, hit training, all that stuff. And there's still some of that left over, but I think you're starting to see more information that speaks to what we do, which is very encouraging because we know scientifically that's what you should be doing.
Yep.
Finally, it's kind of catching up. So I think it's going to be good for us in the future. But look, at the end of the day, guys, you're going to have competitors. They're going to come, they're going to go. Some are going to be great, some are not. I will say two things. One, there's plenty of people out there, like we're at like 65% of our population is considered overweight. Almost 50% is considered clinically obese. Like there's a lot of work to be done. We need more brands. That's all I'll say. Bring them all. I'll find my 130 that like my flavor, and I'll keep them forever. You find your 200 or 300, 400 in your class-based concept. Do your best to keep them, and let's all collectively get together and try to move this ball down the field because like we're not a healthy society right now.
Nope.
And if you're splitting hairs over what the guy down the street's doing, it's keeping you from focusing on helping the people that are right in front of you. I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, brother. Thanks.